said.
I told you. Okay, welcome back, everybody, to Fueling Your Passion podcast. We are in a really, really special location today with a special guest. We are at the Hoonigan Racing Division headquarters, where pretty much everything and anything awesome with the Block family has been based around. With that being said, we kind of have one of the right-hand man here for many years with Hoonigan, also longtime avid sledder, kind of car guy gone mountain guy, Ken Butch.
That's all. I would call it pretty accurate for what you said there.
I was trying to figure out, how do I describe Butch in one opening line? Was that decent?
Yeah, I would say so. I think a lot of people have struggled in the past.
Speaking of struggling, I struggle with your actual last name. When we did a tree talk a few years ago, I asked you how to pronounce it there, and I'm going to ask you again, even though this has been a 5-6 year friendship at this point.
I want to hear you try it.
Anktel?
Close enough. I'll give you a pass on that. Maybe not an A+, but we'll give you a B+.
Correct way?
Anktel?
Anktel. I always add an ank.
I'm not even going to attempt the French pronunciation.
Okay, fair.
We'll just leave it at that and move on.
Fair. But yeah, Butch, you and I met, man, I was trying to think, all of 5 years ago now.
Yeah.
If not 6.
And I have 100% your next podcast to blame for it.
What?
Brandon Steinekert.
Oh, yeah, I know. There's a domino effect of friendships opening up here, which is great and why I love this industry. But right out the bat, I kind of want to, if people have no idea who you are, I'm sure a lot of people do, but your timeline to us sitting right here is pretty awesome.
Yeah. Do I give you the timeline of Brandon introducing us?
You could do that too.
So, yeah, I born and raised motorsports junkie my entire life. Grew up kind of idolizing it and the sport. And Ken Block and Derek Dauncey gave me an opportunity to come here and help build the team and work at the team. And it snowballed into being an extremely avid backcountry snowmobiler and having diverse friends around industries, including the music industry, where we met Brandon probably around the same exact time. Yeah. Brandon said, "Hey, you're going to like this Butch guy." And he said to me, "You're going to like this David guy." And then it kind of snowballed into where we are now.
Yeah, it's the overlap there is pretty cool, actually. That's kind of some of the questions I have leading up into chatting with him also is, how much are you aware of the influence the music has had in action sports?
For sure. And it's funny you say that because I've heard you mention it in other podcasts before.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's not just action sports, it's anything that gets your adrenaline going. Right. There's always music that helps fuel that fire for sure. And Rancid is absolutely on my shuffling playlist that I play on the way out to the trailhead or on the way to the hockey game or something like that. It's always like Rancid, and Dropkick Murphys is always on there, AC/DC, Metallica. I get a little harder there, but the country stuff stays in the truck for on my way home. But music definitely propels things, and it's fun when you like listen to Rancid and you're like, I'm about to get out of the truck, and the last thing I hear is Brandon pounding on the drums.
Yeah, and then you go see him. You're like, oh, hey, I was just listening to you in the driveway.
Who, by the way, he's target number 1 for having to get on a snowmobile in the future.
I know. It's been in the talks year after year, and hopefully I can do some convincing with him tomorrow.
There's so many people that I would call like fringe friends on the snowmobile industry that I want to introduce and just say, hey, you're into UTVs, you're going to love snowmobiling.
That's kind of a long-term goal with like our YouTube series. I would love to take guys from outside of motorsports. For example, here, I was chatting with Chris Cole, legendary skateboarder.
Of course, yeah.
And just get them on a snowmobile with one of our top pro riders. And it's like, yeah, who cares if they're absolute dog shit riders? It's not what it's about. It's more like the experience of, hey, this is another discipline that is, fueling the same adrenaline high that you're chasing on a skateboard. And a lot of it gets inspiration from skateboarding. Pretty much every realm of action sports, somebody said they grew up skateboarding or watching skateboarding. So it'd be really cool in the future to have those two worlds collide. And I'm like, these are stepping stones. It's getting there.
For sure. And I would say it's easier for guys like Brandon who live near snowy climates or in snowy climates to get to try it. And I understand guys that are in like the 909 or Lake Elsinore, they're not close to sled territory. They can't really get into it. But yeah, for sure. It's an industry and it's a sport where it just grabs you and it pulls you in and it doesn't let you go, and you want to be a part of it as soon as you're in it.
You're a victim of that for sure.
Yeah, 100% for sure. I was kind of, I don't want to say born and raised into an outdoor family, but my grandfather was a huge snowmobiler in Rangeley, Maine when I grew up, and I can remember going out. He had a Yamaha Ovation that I ride.
340?
I can't remember. He rode, I think it was like a VMAX.
Yeah.
And I was on an Ovation, and we would just like bomb around the power lines up there and go down the Rangeley Lake and ride around there. And it definitely left an impression, because when I moved out here in 2011, it was probably 2014 or 15 that Ken Block got into sledding. And I was like, that looks pretty cool. I did that a bunch when I was a kid, and it just like, I remember him telling me like, hey, the sled comes, it needs to get broken in. Can you just like, you and Forrest DuPlessis just go out and like do some laps on it and get the miles up and whatnot so it like runs right? And we were like, yeah, we could do that. Absolutely, for sure.
And Forrest doesn't know how to ride.
No, Forrest and I would say we're kind of at the same point, but he grew up like sort of a snowmobiler for sure.
But you still, the two of you get sent out in boss's orders to go break these snowmobiles in.
Totally. And little did Ken know it was like redefining the course of my life.
Yeah.
Like I met my wife through my snowmobile friends, and that might not have happened had Ken not been like, hey, take these ski-doos out, put some miles on them. We got to give one away to Sage Kotzenberg and just go have fun on it. And now here I am obsessed with snowmobiling. My entire life is about it.
I laugh in all the Hoonigan videos, whether it's Gymkhana or something that you show up in, you're featured in. They like refer to you as like sled guy or snowmobile guy, even though you're in, the heart of the biggest name in the industry. It's like automotive goes aside. It's Ken Butch, snowmobile guy.
Well, I don't mind it though, because like
I love it. I think it's
so
hilarious.
many guys are like, oh, this guy, he's a drift guy, or this guy, he's a fellow rally guy. And there's like, in the automotive industry that is really dominated by like Southern California and maybe like the Southeast US, there's no one that's defined as like a winter guy. Right. And that's through and through. I'm like 11 months a year of proper snow on the ground, and 1 month where I still have to wear a Baron full zip in the morning. That is where I want to be.
What a good guy. What a subtle product plug.
Oh, God, I got a list going here.
That was good. The sledding thing, I love how it's taken over your life, but I kind of want to know a little bit, how the heck did you end up here? How did you end up sitting here? There's a lot of pieces in between you growing up in Maine and all of a sudden out here in Park City.
Are you looking for the full story, more descriptive?
Let's like a little bullet points of how did you end up here at Hoonigan?
Bullet point version. Some
key pivotal moments, because I know it didn't happen overnight.
No, key pivotal moments is, and this is kind of a lesson for anyone, and this is honestly, I listened to your podcast. I can't remember who it was with, but you were talking about how like you fell in love with this sport and you couldn't leave it, and you wanted everything to do with it, and it consumed your life, and you were going to events and paying your own way to be there, and basically like handing out a company card for just yourself to just be associated with the event or a team. It's kind of a carbon copy of what I did. I went to high school, graduated high school, knew I wanted to get into motorsports, went to a school in Maine that was like not pushing me towards motorsports. So I told my parents, I was like, this isn't really the direction I want to go in. I want to be in professional motorsports. Yeah. So both my mom and my dad were like, look, you're 18 years old, give it until you're 21, 22, move home, move in, work odd jobs, see what you can do to get into the sport. And I just moved home, worked at an ice arena, was a mascot for a semi-professional hockey team for 4 years.
No way.
Just to pay the bills.
The full get-up, full suit out there on skates?
Everything.
Wow.
Everything, full on, all of it. Yeah, I got some stories from that one. But anyways, I would like anyone that would answer my phone and would, at the beginning, just answer my phone and let me tag along to like eventually pay me and then pay my way, and then I could profit. And then this became like a little business opportunity. It kind of snowballed until 2011. Ken Block's team manager, Derek Dauncey, called me and was like, hey, we have an opportunity. We need a guy that's devoted. He didn't say single, but I know he was looking for a single guy. He's like
somebody who knows they're not going to be home much.
Yeah, for sure. Like work hard, be a part of the team, make it your passion. And I did that. And then it just snowballed from like, we'll bring you out to LA for 2 months. 2 months became, 2 weeks. 2 weeks became 2 months. 2 months became, we need you to move home to New Hampshire. And then from New Hampshire, we need you to move to Park City, Utah. And I just like fell in line. And
so you were first in LA for a while at like the Hoonigan Compton headquarters?
We were in a storage unit behind a Ford
This was pre
dealership.
that time.
Yeah, we were in like...
So here you come out of the East Coast to the big city of LA.
First time ever.
I'm sure you were second guessing things a little bit.
I wouldn't say second guessing. The only thing I was second guessing was like the relationships I was making with like these odd British guys that have become family to me. And I'm like, I feel myself like inseparable to them. But it was definitely thrust into this world of motorsports where it snowballed from LA for 2 weeks to Park City for the rest of my life.
It's a reoccurring theme. It goes kind of one of two ways. There's people that end up in college or going into college that still don't know what they want to do. Or there's those who get hooked on something at a young age and run with it and say, this is what I want to do. And then they're just the guy that's there at the events, like you were, like I was. You're just present. You're just trying to make good impression, chat with everybody. You're not really looking for anything sometimes. You're just kind of being a familiar face. And eventually you almost like on accident establish yourself throughout the industry. You just, everywhere they look, this guy's there and he's got something to benefit everybody. It's offer.
It's funny because I can remember and I look back on it now and I thought it was cheeky and cheesy then. And now, like, if I'm not here at the shop, which I'm hardly ever here now, it's like I wore a cowboy hat back then at events so people could remember like, oh, the last event I saw that kid in a cowboy hat. And then we're now on the West Coast and they saw me in a cowboy hat, and we were in Mexico and they saw me in a cowboy hat. And now it's like I wear cowboy hats a lot living out here in the West nowadays, so it's not as odd. But back then it was like a marketing ploy
your little
for
trademark.
Myself. Yeah, exactly. My little trademark, like try and make sure they remember me somehow. And I don't know if it worked or not, but I certainly gave it a go.
Yeah. I mean, clearly worked out in the end for you here.
Yeah, somehow it worked out.
You just got me thinking on this, being the guy in school and your school not really having anything to kind of support what you wanted to do or going in that direction. Have you had, I kind of overheard somebody talking about this on a podcast I was listening to, guys either from middle school, high school, whatever, like hometown friends after success or chasing your dreams, ending up where you wanted to be, who like were naysayers, then reach out like, hey man, like I've had a kid, here's a really specific example. In study hall, I remember I was 7th grade, I'll never forget it. And I told him I wanted to film for 509 one day. I was like, I'm going to do it. And he was like, no, man, there's no way. You're never going to do that. Like just negative the whole time. Fast forward about a year and a half ago, he reached out to me on Instagram. He's like, dude, super cool to see what you're doing now. Do you have like any discounts on goggles?
Yeah, that's hilarious.
It was oddly satisfying, but I was like, oh man, talk about full circle. Have you dealt with any of that along the road?
I wouldn't say I had naysayers growing up. I definitely had really supportive friends and family.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, I had those too, but there was like the couple kids that were just, they had nothing better to do.
My late grandmother, I can remember at one point in time, her being like, I must have been like 19 years old. So she was in her right to say it when I was 19. But I can remember her being like, when are you going to stop this motorsports thing and get a real job? And here I am, 35 years old. Granted, I'm not in motorsports anymore, but I'm like, yeah, it made it work.
Yeah.
The best years of my life, 13 years here at Hoonigan and probably 15, 16 professionally in motorsports. I'm like, this is like, I would say I did what I went after.
You've been able to travel the world doing what you love.
Yeah, it's like 32 countries I've been to. Yeah, with race cars and race team and whatnot. So, yeah, traveled the world is an understatement.
Yeah, and you and I are really good at phone tag, but I'll never forget you were filming ClimbCon, I think, over in, was that Japan?
China.
And I called you for something, not realizing where you were, and you answered. And you were in the midst of, with a bunch of Chinese guys in a van or something, trying to get tires changed.
Yeah, that kind of defines that whole trip. Was like me and a couple Chinese guys, and one spoke broken English, and he had a real name, but he wanted us to call it Jeffrey, and he was fantastic. I still follow him on Facebook now. He's like the coolest dude ever. But yeah, just running around this odd Chinese town, like life experiences, eating KFC in China, trying to find a way to change these crazy 20-inch wheel beadlock rims, and like no language spoken between me and the tire changers, but we're just there trying.
Nobody has a specialty tool for that there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the rims were like, the barrel on the rims were backwards, so they were super hard to change, but it kind of defines every trip we've made outside the U.S. and all of our stuff we've done in the U.S. where we just went and got it done. Like, we're not there to be told no. We're there to get the job done. And with the team of guys we had, we always got it done. Like, the stories are endless of how, like, we were backs against the wall, finished filming, we're all done, and then we pull it out in the end.
I'm sure. With 32 countries, language barriers, logistics, everything, and you have to figure it out. You guys have spent the money to be there. There's a job to be done. You got to get crafty no matter what.
Yeah, for sure. I think the only time we've ever come home early was like the closest event we ever did in Colorado Springs. These pictures adorn the walls of an event we like had to go to twice because we had engine issues. I'm so glad it wasn't like we had to come back from China twice and then go back there to try and finish filming. Like, no, we went once, we got the job done, and that's what this team always did, was they always went once and got the job done.
I know we're talking a lot about your experiences with Hoonigan, but what exactly was your position? I know you were constantly trying to figure out how to get cars to different places, working on cars, managing, getting people to hotel rooms, everything in between. But what was the official title for that? It
began as technician and truck driver, and it held on to technician and truck driver until probably 2018. And then I became shop manager here, loosely titled, because we didn't do a ton in the shop here. We were very much road specific, but I ended my time here because here's a quick way to lose followers. I'm no longer with Blockhouse Racing or Hoonigan Racing, but yeah, I ended my time here as shop manager.
You shouldn't lose followers for that because you are just a stand-up guy. And people should follow you for that, Butch.
I appreciate it, but the internet is something different. And
actually, that was kind of what I was getting at, was stand-up guy. I was going to kind of put you on a pedestal here, is the fact that while you were in China doing that, you answered the phone. And I'm like, dude, you can call me back. I can't remember what I was calling about. Maybe a gear order, something minor in the grand scheme of what you had going on. And you're like, no, what's up? And I could just hear this chaos behind you. I'm like, just call me back, man.
I feel like you've said to me a lot, just call me back. And I'm like, no, we'll handle it right now. Because I have the memory of a goldfish. It's gone in 5 minutes. Something like Ken hits a wall, we got to fix something. I'm never remembering to call you back.
Yeah, fair. I appreciate it because I think you and I might have the longest running record of like phone tag in my contacts.
My new place, we have a shop manager. Him and I never answer the phone when we call the first time. It's always like 30 minutes later and I miss it or he misses it. So you're not the only one out there. Maybe I'm the problem here. It's not you, it's me, David.
It's, you know what? I'll evaluate that over the next few calls to you and see whose court the ball is in.
Okay.
But
make notes.
Yeah. Dude, since you and I have met, you've kind of got involved with sledding a lot more, obviously, since 10, 15 years ago, but you've been able to then overlap not only riding with Ken, but riding with some of our pro team, which have then become your friends as well. Like you've ridden with Jay and Blaine quite a bit, and then even outside of our team, just notable guys that we're all friends with, like Carl Kuster up in BC, just some legends of the sport.
Shelley Ferguson, Tony Jenkins, Ross Robinson. Yeah. And it kind of speaks to the industry as a whole that, okay, I'm not blind here. I'm heavily associated with Ken, but when I was like just following these guys and commenting and here and there, they're so welcoming.
Yeah.
And like, oh, hey, you love the sport. I love the sport. We should sport together. And it just snowballed from like a lot of those guys are really, really good friends of mine now. And we talk about stuff far away from snowmobiling, but it's just super inclusive, the whole entire thing.
It's one of those things growing up, they were idols to me. Like superstars, right? And once you get to know somebody, for any like fans listening and want to interact, like you see the people that are just like starstruck and they can't speak, which is awesome. I mean, they're meeting somebody they've looked up to for years, but end of the day, like we're all just humans. And when you break that barrier down, it's like we can actually hold a conversation and never even reference snowmobiling once. Yeah. And it might almost be more meaningful at the end of the day.
Can I tell you a story here that I wish I wasn't going to tell, but I'm going to tell it?
Let her buck. I'm ready.
So when Ken first got into snowmobiling, he had I should say when Ken got into snowmobiling later in life, because he snowmobiled at the Mountain Lab and whatnot. Anyways, he had Can-Am or Ski-Doo, BRP. They wanted to film a video, so they invited Carl Kuster down and Ashley Chaffin down.
I remember this.
And we had Sage Kotzenberg and Bodie Merrill and Ken, and I was kind of in the background helping facilitate things. Carl came to town, and he had a sled that he borrowed from a buddy, and he was like, hey, I need a place. I got to do some work before we hit the mountain in the morning. And I was like, so fresh into snowmobiling, I was like, I hate saying this. I was like, I don't know who this is. Like I'm like super late to go to something else. Like I got to push some plans around. Like, yeah, I'll just see if I can give him a wrench or two in the morning and help him with what he needs. And now if I could like turn back the clock, I'd like, Carl calls me, I cancel everything. I clear my schedule for a week. Carl's in town. Absolutely. I'm clearing my schedule. Like I answer his call. If I'm laying under a car with 20 minutes to change a transmission at a race, I'm answering Carl's call. Like that's Carl Kuster. Yeah. Like, I don't want to say the GOAT of snowmobiling, but pretty
he's
close.
Up there. He's up there.
And I'm like, I cannot believe I did that. Like, what an idiot I was.
Isn't that funny? Talk about full circle now, and now you guys are going up there to ride with him. Yeah. And the roles are reversed now. Now he's the one that's like, no, anything for you guys.
I know. It's a nice relationship when they're like, I'll do anything for you, and we're like, we'll do anything for you. And it's really, really nice. I would say, like, Tony Jenkins really taught me how to snowmobile. Carl and Shelly in Canada, they pushed me to be better. Mm-hmm. Like Tony taught me how to walk. Carl and Shelly taught me how to jump and run and spin and all this other stuff, like for sure.
They're so spoiled with the terrain up there.
I know. They took us to this spot once. They call it a cut block, and they had a permit to use it like 3 times a year, and they used one of those days for us. And it was like, until this past year in Utah, it was the deepest snow I'd ever seen. And Carl's filming with Ken, and myself and our buddy Stu Soares is up there. And Shelly's like, hey, if you guys aren't busy, come this way. And we go out and we go up and down this cut block. And I say up and down. I went down. Stu and Shelly went up and down multiple times. And I can remember getting to the bottom, and I'm like, super steep, probably like 32, 35 degree slope. For at the time it was steep for me. And I was like, there's big logs that are buried under
pillows
snow.
Everywhere.
Pillows galore. And I'm like, I don't know how I'm ever going to get up this. And Shelly comes down, and Shelly looks at me, and straight face, seriously, she was like, you could just jump on my sled and I'll take you like little buddy ride to the top.
Squirrel ride.
And then I'll come down and get your sled with Stu. And I was like, no way that just happened. And she's totally 100% capable of doing that. And she's like 5'5".
She's a phenomenal rider.
One of the best I've ever seen. And she's a female. And I was like, okay, I got to, pull my head out of my butt here. I got to get up this slope. Shelly just offered to bring me to the top of the slope. I need to figure this out. I eventually made it to the top, and somehow I did a hop over on the way up.
An accidental one? Or?
Accidental one. I didn't even mean to, but I still managed, and it helped me get up the slope. But from that point on, I was like, there are people in this world that are sledding at a level that most people don't comprehend. She's on that list. Carl's on that list. Jason Reeby's on that list. All from CKMP. They're like incredible riders.
Definitely.
But they're also, going back to what I first said about like Jay and Blaine and friendly with all of them, they're so welcoming. Yeah. They want to help you. And I've kind of adopted this where I could sit in a field for 3 hours and snowmobile with people that have never been, or I could be in the gnarliest drainage somewhere in Wyoming or Utah. Mm-hmm. Either way, I'm so stoked to be out there riding.
Totally, man. I push it to the very last bit of snow. People are like, what a waste of time. I'm like, no, that is like my happy place. Yeah. I will drive 2 hours out of town up a logging road for a June patch of slush that you can only ride 100 yards by 100 yards and have the best day ever. Yeah. And there's only a handful of people, and yourself included, that get that.
So July 4th is the latest I've ridden. Someday I'll get to Chile and I'll ride with like Barant and those guys down there. But yeah, it was like July 4th. We're like, there's a 12 foot by 12 foot patch of snow. We could say we've hit that July day. We've got to go do it. It's funny though, where we rode on July 4th is 100 yards from where I got married on July 22nd.
The same year?
The same year. So I can remember riding that patch of snow and being like, 100 yards that way. I'm getting married in
2
18
weeks.
days.
Yeah.
I'm like, but you get it.
Yeah,
you understand.
Completely. On what you were saying about, it's so hard to explain to people some of the terrain we're in. It's same thing with filming. Like I show my mom or whoever, people that aren't really into snowmobiling, the videos, and nothing does it justice until you're actively out there. And I just battle it constantly. And I know you guys have shot some sled stuff, and I've heard a couple of, you can decide if you want to hit on it, horror stories of trying to film stuff with guys that aren't snowmobile filmers aren't very versed in winter climate.
For sure.
And it makes or breaks how it all turns out for everybody in the party.
For sure. We filmed once. We filmed with Matt Magic Johnston, and I think Will Rogie was there. This is that shoot with Ashley and Carl at Powder Mountain. And we were at the bottom of this crazy slope, and they were going to film like Sage coming down the slope with Ken on the sled beside him. And Magic was like, I need to get the shot halfway up the slope. And Magic's probably my size. He's like 6'2", 6'3". He, with camera equipment strapped to his back, it's probably an additional 70, 80 pounds. You understand that. Right. And he's like, I can go to the top and slide down on my butt. And Carl's like, no, sit on the sled in front of me. And Carl just leaned over the top of him and just like little buddy rode him all the way up the slope from the bottom up, not the top down, and took him and just dropped him off at like a pine tree on the side in the perfect
spot
location.
Good? Okay, bye.
Yeah. And I was like, that was like right when I really got into sledding. And I was like, these people are different. Yeah. There's a different mentality to these people. They know what they're doing out here. Like, people can parallel park a car. Yeah. These guys are riding sleds at the same level.
Yeah. As far as different goes, the most different of the bunch, Jay and Blaine by far. Blaine.
How do you even talk about that?
Blaine, a literal cowboy. Probably one of the most Western cowboys I know.
I know. Every time I go to a rodeo, I'm like, shoot, is Blaine here? Is he riding,
Yeah.
Is he riding the horses this time?
Because he doesn't really talk about it. He might be there. He just kind of shows up and he does some rodeo and then just goes back to the ranch.
So the Jay and Blaine show, everyone needs to subscribe on YouTube. Yes. I see they're off to, I don't know, Canada, South America, somewhere right now, just being Jay and Blaine. But I rode with them once up Grays River, past Dan Adams' place. Yep. It was me, Jay, Blaine, Stu Soares, and Ken Block. And we went up there. We had an awesome day in and out of these drainages, super fun. And we're like watching the clock. We could drive back to Utah. Okay, so we're at the top of this drainage, and we're looking down into the burn zone up there.
Yep, I know exactly what you're talking about.
And the road is coming out of the burn zone, and you're heading back to the Grays parking lot. And Stu comes over to the radio. He's like, hey, my sled's broke. He's not on a BRP product. We'll say that. And it's broken.
Come on.
And I don't know what you guys do over there, but the handlebars aren't working the skis anymore.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And there's more than a steering column underneath the plastics. Yeah, so anyways.
There's some linkage things going on there. Yeah.
Broke that.
Okay.
We're like, oh, shoot, he's got to get all the way down this drainage. I think he had to go up a little drainage and then down to the road. And we're like, okay. They're like, Butch, Ken, ride down there, make a path, find the easiest way, get down to the road, and then maybe come back halfway, and then the guys will come down. So we do that, and they're figuring something out at the top. Ken and I can't see them. And they radio, or Stu radios. He's like, okay, the boys are coming down on my sled right now. And they come over the crest, and they're not on the path that Ken and I had like beat into the hillside. And Jay is sitting on the sled, brake, throttle. Blaine is sitting on the hood with his feet on the control arms, and they've rigged up some rope, like the pole rope or something, to the skis. So now Jay is throttle brake and Blaine is riding it like a horse in the rodeo. Like the Oakley Rodeo on July 4th might be Blaine coming out of the chutes on a sled next year. And they're not on the path, they're side hilling with two guys sitting on the hood of the sled, and they do that thing perfectly all the way to the bottom. They may have even made a turn or something like that.
Started having fun in the middle of it.
Yeah. And I'm like, I thought we were like, call a helicopter. Yeah. Like, this is no good. And they're, no. They got it sorted out. Rope, two guys on the sled, down we go. no problem whatsoever. And that was when I was like, these two dudes, they're
the real deal.
They're the real deal. They're different for sure. They're the modern day cowboy for
Ken's
sure.
probably like, who are these hooligans?
I know. And ever since that point, whenever we would go ride, he was like, hey, text Jay and Blaine, see if they're available to come down. Or like Tony, like text Tony, see if these guys are coming down. Because he loved to surround himself with the best of the best. If he was going skateboarding, like he would invite Tony Hawk or something. So when he goes sledding, it's Jay, Blaine, Tony, Carl, those guys.
It's cool to watch somebody that's what their craft is. I still get blown away watching some of the lines Jay and Blaine will ride. I've been filming them for, at least Jay. I've been filming Jay for 8 or 9 years now. And he still throws down some lines that don't make sense to me because he has that rimshot background, racing hill climb.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot of guys out there. Like, granted, Caleb's a totally different style of technical tree riding, but Jay and Blaine are like the most efficient and fast tree riders I've ever witnessed.
Blaine is the only
blitz through stuff.
Blaine is one of the only people I've ridden with that goes full throttle downhill in the trees.
Yeah.
Most people are obviously full throttle uphill in the trees. Blaine, you're like, oh, dude, he's doing a big climb right now. Then you look over and he's facing downhill.
Wide open,
for sure. He's also run me over on a sled before. Do you remember that?
Was I there? Was that super deep day?
Star Valley.
Yeah,
that's Sane and Lars.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We were coming at the camera for something, and I lost him, and he went over the top of me on a sled. Like, walked away. I was totally
You guys were
fine.
downhill turnings towards me.
Yeah, and I don't think he was full throttle that time, so maybe that was his issue.
That was for the bed air. Stephen Clark loves that. He's like, does that guy ever let off the throttle?
No, neither of them do.
Stephen gets Jay going because he's like, I just want to film Blaine all day.
That's great. Steven's good at winding people up like that, for sure.
And he's got that Scottish accent, which kind of makes everything a little funnier.
I like riding with these guys in the backcountry because I did Rimshaw for a couple years.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, around here locally in Utah, I'm pretty good. I ride with a lot of people, and there's pretty well not any terrain around here that we're not going to go test.
Right.
And I'm like, I'll go race Rimshaw, I'll see how I do. And like, Rainey's Luke at the time, he was, I think, 14 years old.
Oh yeah, no, what's his kid's? I think his kid's name's Axis.
Caden.
Doesn't he have a kid named Axis also?
Maybe. Either way,
yeah.
I got mopped up. I was in semi-pro class and I wouldn't have qualified in like juniors.
Quick reality check.
Oh, dude, bigger than I've ever had in my entire life, where I'm like, Jay and Blaine are like, oh, do this, do that, this, that, here, wherever. And I'm like, okay, I think I got this. And I get up the hill and I'm like 15 seconds off of qualifying time. And everyone ahead of me, I can't buy a beer for. And I'm like, I've been driving a car longer than they've been alive.
Yeah.
And I can't go up this hill as quick as these guys. Rimshaw is a different level.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people think I can go there and I can do all right. But you need to understand, unless you practice like 100 hours
the nastiest ruts you can make.
Oh, it's so different than backcountry riding for sure. It's incredible. But the riders there, and I feel like half of them are out of Star Valley, which is a whole nother story. The riders there
something in the water there.
They're different.
Yeah.
They're so good.
I really, really wish and hope some funding comes for Rimshaw because it is gnarly. If you go to a Rimshaw race and stand on the hill and watch it, it's hard to capture on camera. You see photos, you see Instagram edits from Jackson and whatnot, but physically being there and hearing those things revving 8,800 RPM, twin pipes, full race gas turbos, chewing through rocks, ice, gravel, it's an awesome sport. The
gnarliest of the gnarliest sections in Rimshaw. Okay, so I come from a background of motorsports. I've been to WRC events, World Rallycross events, X Games, all this stuff. The coolest of the action sports, I've been to it all. I can tell you that the top of Jackson is like an ESPN quality, like presentable product.
Yeah.
If it's filmed correctly, announced correctly, it has to be obviously tape delay because you got to cut it. There's so much stuff that happens up there with stuck sleds. It is one of the gnarliest things that you could go to see, especially when you're like, I'm standing on the hillside watching guys go up the hill beside me, but I can also lean against the hillside. I could put my hand out and touch the hillside, and these guys are going up full throttle like they're like driving a car to the grocery store.
Yeah. I've been hoping one of these good old boy ranchers, there's all these guys in Star Valley that are 80 years old worth $250 million. You know, they've had land for decades and decades. I just like hope one of them has got a grandson or something and donates $1 million to Rimshaw or something one of these years, because if it had the right platform, and I don't know if anybody listening is like interested in getting involved in it, but it would be, I think, do really, really well if it was captured correctly and brought to the masses a little more.
I don't know if that's every event, but like Afton and Jackson.
Afton's nasty too.
Afton's gnarly because the hill gets pretty, I don't want to say flat at the top, but there's so many logs and stumps. And I high marked a couple times because I have sight fixation where I'm just like, oh, look, there's a stump right there. And then smash. And I'm like, I just hit exactly what I thought I was trying to go around. It was so frustrating. But yeah, Afton and Jackson and a couple of the others are so gnarly at the top. It's completely like, it's hard for me to explain to the common person how crazy it is that guys are riding snowmobiles up this.
Yeah. I've watched U.S. Hard Enduro. Do you watch any of those recaps?
Yeah.
The series that Sky Pixels Media has been doing?
Yeah, for sure.
Those are exactly what I would love to see.
Sky Pixels filmed with Hoonigan.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're good guys. They reached out to us years ago, back when we were shooting with Reds and all that stuff, and before we dumbed it down and went YouTube. But something that style for Rimshaw would be awesome. But
for sure.
We'll see.
Yeah, maybe not drone work. Drone work is usually like pointed at the hill, I feel like. It's got to be a couple cameras that film along the hill and show the steepness of it.
Agreed. Hey, I got a question for you here. So historically, all the Hoonigan guys, you look at like Scotto, you look at Zach, they all got these project cars, something they're involved in. I don't know if you've ever really mentioned, did you ever dive into the project car side, or did you just you spend so much time in your day job working on them, and then you have sledding and your snowmobiles work?
Project sleds.
Yeah, do you have project sleds? Did you ever really dive into a at-home garage project that you were working on through the...
You know, when you work in motorsports, it's kind of like, I don't want to see you lose your passion for working on your personal stuff, but I definitely send my trucks in for an oil change. Yeah. I'm embarrassed to admit that, but I have a 07 Ram.
That's funny you say that, because I know the car sitting right behind you, you've definitely done an oil change on before.
Yeah, a few times for sure. We've had that down to a bare chassis.
But your pickup truck right to the dealer.
That's for sure. But there's one thing to understand. Race cars are meant to be taken apart and put back together, and nothing is rusted. And then I go to work on my Ram, and it's like, I got to get the torch out because this bolt's rusted solid and all this other stuff. But yeah, on the project side, there's stuff coming down the pipeline. My Ram is like industrial injection built 5.9 with a turbo and tune and
I didn't know
girdle on the bottom and block, all this other stuff. So it's quite built up. I need to put a bigger clutch in it because right now it just spins the clutch. I'd rather it spin the tires in the clutch. But I should also point out, because I said clutch, it's a 6-speed G56.
You're proud of that, I know.
I'm not any automatic guy. And I know I've given you
bring it up very frequently.
Yeah, so how your automatic doing?
It's pretty nice from long distance. I don't do a damn
My work
thing.
truck now is an automatic, and I love that. But when I get back in my G56, I'm like, oh, man, this is so nice to have a manual. For sure, I love it. But, yeah, coming down the pipeline, sad story here. We lost my dad to Alzheimer's in 2020, and he and my mom, the first car they ever purchased was a 70s Datsun 260Z,
cool.
Gorgeous blue color, and we still have it. They never got rid of it, but it stopped running in the 80s, so I've never actually seen it run.
It's been sitting since the 80s.
Sitting since the 80s, yeah. My brother in the early 2000s with a buddy of his, they kind of did some work to it, and I don't think they ever got it running, but it got closer, then it sat some more. But anyways, it's in Hoonigan Racing's shop over here. It just sits collecting dust.
Oh, really?
But my brother is building a garage, and the plan is like we will invest money, time, effort, put it back together, get it back on the road. Because it was, like I said, the first car my parents bought new when they got married, and it's still with us. So
how many
that's
miles
like,
are on it?
I don't even know. That's a good question. We should pause and go look. Yeah. It's got some rust issues, though. I'll say at least that much.
Well, East Coast, salt, all that stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But no, you haven't ended up like the rest of these guys with 20 cars and 4 run in their backyard.
You know, so right now,
I think that's a blessing in disguise, because it sounds like a little bit of a headache.
The wife has a Subaru. I have my work Ford. I have my personal Ram. I have, I guess you can say the Datsun it's kind of half ownership of my brother. And then sitting out front, rotting away in the Utah sun is my Audi 4000 CS Quattro with a flat tire, which is like, we had an awesome guy working here, Dave Pecoraro, who I was like, oh, Dave's the Audi guy. I got into an Audi, and now we've both gone our separate ways in the company. And I'm like, I need to invest the time back in that because that's a car that I've always loved having. But I counted the other day, I've only had 10 cars in my whole life. I've almost had as many sleds.
Yeah.
But then I think about like the guys down at Hoonigan, and they're like, oh, I had 10 cars last week, and then I have a new 10 cars this week. It's a different level.
I was just listening to Scotto on Jason Ellis on the drive down here.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
He said he currently has 23 cars and like 4 run.
Yeah, I don't doubt that for sure. He's picked up some like odd things like a XR4 Ti from like
tons
a
of things he's
Miracore
been looking for forever. And
that like we had this XR4 Ti that we bought just for a single part to finish filming with Ken once, and Scotto inherited the car and whatnot. So, I mean, if I had the financial means to do it, I would have a 6-car garage where 3 cars are sleds and a trailer, and then the other 3 are like double parked with cars. I would absolutely be overwhelmed with cars.
Yeah. Well, I kind of want to flip the script because this is the first time I've ever done a podcast where the guest comes with a list.
Yeah, I tend to be, or I try and be.
And I know you keep looking for good segues, so I'm just totally transparent. I really I'm interested in what you want to pitch next here.
Oh man, there's so many different directions we can go in. I want to do hot takes. I always like when people get into hot takes, and the first one I'll get into is, what's your thoughts on Ross's Blizzard beats?
I don't even know if I know that.
Oh, he talked about it on your podcast, and you didn't follow up with it?
Why do I not remember this? Jog my memory.
So it was one of the episodes.
I'm extremely sleep
He's got a
deprived right now,
station on, I think it's Spotify, called Blizzard Beats. There's a couple of them, but they're
we were talking about my Spotify playlist also.
Yeah, and then it says like Blizzard Beats by Ross Robinson or something like that. And I was like, oh man, I'm going to get into this. Ross has got a playlist, and I don't think I shuffled 3 songs and then made it 30 seconds into the next. And I was like, no, I'm removing that from my Spotify. So I really, sorry, Ross, but I'm not a Blizzard Beats guy.
That's okay. So here's something where I'm putting my guard down. I'm curious if I can poke Brandon's brain at this tomorrow. So there's this weird thing happening for guys, millennials in their 30s right now.
Yeah.
Where we're all like accepting and going into the kind of modern outlaw country.
Yes.
That grew up like on pop punk and skater punk. And I saw this like TikTok or something. It was something really specific to that exact topic. Like POV, you're 30 and you grew up on whatever, all these bands, and now you listen to Ryan Bingham and all this stuff. And the top comment was like, okay, so we're all like this, ? And it had like 42,000 likes on the comment.
Wait, you listen to Outlaw Country on Sirius XM?
Yeah, it's in my pre-saved in the truck.
Pre-save number 1 for me is NHL Radio. Number 2 is Outlaw Country.
Faction Punk.
Yeah, Faction is on there.
314
Faction 90s Punk. On 9, which I usually like when Britney Spears comes on, I skip over it.
Yeah.
But it's so funny you say that because that's like I said earlier. It's not on the way to, it's on the way back from the trailhead. I'm like,
exactly.
Outlaw Country.
It just kind of feels right driving through the mountains. But here's the one I was getting at is I have, along with every other 18 to 30-year-old gal, have an extreme obsession with Zach Bryan, and I have no...
yeah, that's too highway for me.
I just got... No. I don't know if you've gone to the deep cuts. That's something about it. I keep trying to like go listen to something else, and all of a sudden I'm resorting back to this playlist. But what I was getting at is Ross and I see eye to eye on that one. Like Ross is just as invested in it as I am, that specific artist. And now all of a sudden, like all my close friends are like, yeah, I really like him too. And all of a sudden we got 10 people over at the house and we're all jamming to the Zach Bryan album.
Which is as far away from Blizzard Beats as you could possibly get.
I know, right? So talk about extreme ends of the spectrum. I'm like double bass metal or skater punk or this kind of sad boy country outlaw song.
Yeah, I get that for sure. I got another hot take that I really want to ask you.
Hit me.
Worst style. No visor or visor all the way down?
They're both almost the same category. So here's where my dorky history gut goes to. When I see no visor, I instantly think of Mike Metzger doing the first backflip.
Yes, totally. I'm so glad you said that.
Neversoft brain painted, or the eyeball painted on it. That's where I go. But then visor down, Just internal pain. Extreme internal pain.
Yeah, I see so many people where I'm like, I just want to break out the flathead screwdriver on 509 helmets. You don't need to do that because they just have like the little wings on there sometimes, and just flip the visor back up.
What about the double whammy? Visor down and goggle strap hanging at the bottom of the helmet.
Yeah, but I get out of a tree section sometimes, and I've been whacked by a pine tree, and then I've ridden a half an hour or an hour, and then someone's like, hey, your strap's down. And I'm like, oh, how long has it been? Like, we stopped and talked to those guys on the trail, and my visor was around, or my strap was around my neck.
You let me look like a Jerry?
Yeah. I'm like, guys, come on. I'm like, if I got a booger in my nose, tell me. I'm not offended. If my strap is down or my visor comes down and I don't realize it, please stop me in my spot and tell me. If
I look stupid, let me know.
I mean, I can't go that deep because a lot of times it's just generally how I look. But I got another hot take here. Pink is Jay's color.
You saw that new photo?
It's Jay's color.
It kind of looked good with that burgundy red wrap.
Yes.
It was an interesting contrast.
I saw that and I showed my wife, and we were both like, that kind of works for him.
I know.
I'm not against it for him.
So we haven't posted it yet, but there are photos of Blaine in that getup too.
Oh.
But there's photos of Blaine with helmet off and that gnarly handlebar mustache all frozen up with the pink jacket. He's quite the spectacle.
Is he the one holding that photo from coming out?
No, I haven't.
Is he like, look, I got a rodeo crew that can't see me in pink?
No, I might be able to exploit him next week and post it on social.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I'll share it for you guys.
Perfect.
For sure. My last hot take here, improperly adjusted handlebars drives me up a wall, especially on Ski-Doos, because we can't go. We need like riser to steering post, 1-to-1, no angle change. Yep. And I see guys out there with it leaned way forward. Mm-hmm. What are you guys doing?
The double whammy to that is tall bars for a 5'7" guy too.
Yeah. I feel like when I got into the sport, I was told I needed tall bars. Now I'm like on so many hills straight and sleds straight at me. I'm like, no, I'm not saying I want a 1-inch riser, but I need a shorter bar. Otherwise I feel like I'm just steering at my chest.
It makes total sense. I remember when I finally dawned on me, when Brant started really pushing the short bar thing, he was like, hey, pick this up at the table while leaning over the table. And I was like, no range of motion, right?
Yeah, totally.
I'm like, I got nothing. He's like, now stand up straight and pick it up. Easier? Yeah. Same concept with maneuvering a snowmobile. And it was just like, duh. Makes total sense. But the bars, yes, I've got to a point now where my setup has to be perfect. I'm talking within an 1/8 or 1/16 of an inch of adjusting it back and forth, dialing it in. It has to be perfect, or I can feel it at this point.
Yeah, I'm not super particular with the sled setup on sleds. Okay, riser to handlebars one thing, but like shocks and limiter strap and that stuff, I'm not wicked particular about it. I know guys that are like, oh, I can't ride unless I get 2 clicks stiffer on the shocks. I'm like, nah, it's fine. It's Utah. We're pretty flat here for the most part.
All right, I'm going to flip the hot take on you then. Not really a hot take, more of a yes or no. Evolve or Stoke?
Stoke's what I say that.
Stoke, I see you do both.
Stoke jacket.
Yeah.
Evolve pants.
Yeah. What'd you start in the first year? Did you have you changed your setup as you've spent more time in the gear?
First year I went insulated and I took the insulation out.
Yeah.
That snap-in insulation. Now because I feel like, especially in the last 5 years, that base layers, like the 509 like party suit was what I got this year. I'm super stoked on it.
Merino.
Yeah, but how good base layers have given me the ability to just get shells. So I'm a shell guy where I'm like shell jacket, shell pants. That's why Stoke shell jacket this year, Evolve shell pants this year. I don't need to go insulated. If I was in Minnesota, probably a different story when it's -20 out and I'm riding at 65 miles an hour. But for sure, I'm definitely a non-insulated, wear my base layers, wear my second layer, that stuff. And then it's perfect. Yeah. Plus, it makes it easier to shed layers because it's just hard when you have insulation. Although I haven't tried ZI yet, zonal insulation, and it's something that I'm like, I need to dabble on this. So when the Black Friday sale comes around, I'm probably going to try and get into a zonal insulation thing.
It's super cool. It's that good happy medium for the West. I'd say like that January through February, you get those, cold, high pressure days. when you still don't really want to wear fully insulated, but your base layers might not be enough, it's strategically, like you said, zonally in the torso, front and back, and it's just blown in like a sin down, like similar to the Sin Loft puffies.
Yeah.
And when I first heard about the design team kind of making it, I was like, yeah, I don't really know who's this for. And then we got some test time in them, and I'm like, this is the ultimate, still lightweight, just the right amount of extra warmth for those cold midwinter days. And it just works well. Ross wrote it for like a whole year before it came out, and he's like, dude, this is one of the coolest midwinter pieces.
Are you a onesie guy or a jacket and pants guy?
I go back and forth a lot. So my kind of recommendation is, if you got the money, get both, right?
Yeah.
But if not, go with a two-piece, because it is nice being able to casually wear your jacket around.
Yeah.
Use it for the most of bang for the buck. But if you do get two, December through February, I'm a onesie guy. Just kind of those deep, deep days. Seems like we're always getting fresh snow and you're totally sealed up. And then kind of come springtime, I switch back to the two-piece.
I've always been a two-piece guy. I got the party suit this year, and I'm excited to try like a onesie first layer. But I'll probably always stay a two-piece guy, because a lot of times I live so close to the trails that we most commonly ride. Right. I'm like, throw the pants on at home, and then put the Sin vest on, and then head for the parking lot, unload, put my jacket on, throw the Sin back in the bag or something like that. So yeah, that's the direction I typically go. But I will say though, and this is such a sales pitch for 509. When I started wearing 509, you guys basically only did sled stuff. Mm-hmm. Now my closet is 509. My entire wardrobe is 509. And I said earlier, if I could live somewhere where I could wear my Bear and full zip at least like once during the day, that's such a happy point for me.
Yeah, which is hilarious to me, because you coming from one of the biggest clothing manufacturers in all of motorsports, Hoonigan. Oh,
for sure, yeah. Don't get me wrong, my T-shirts are dominated by Hoonigan, and my hoodie lineup is still dominated by Hoonigan. But for sure, outerwear past that is 509.
I notice, every time I see you in a photo, I'm like, it's a 50-50 split. It's 509 Hoonigan. It's somewhere in your outfit.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Which is awesome, man.
The end of last season, the Hoonigan Racing team picked up. They were all ether jackets, Bear and full zips. They had logos on them. We even got the ether pants, and it was a game changer. Like, I remember bringing this stuff to the guys and being like, hey, do you think this would work? And they're like, this is really nice stuff, like crazy nice stuff. And they were all wearing it at the end of last year and through this year. And it's so, just especially the ether jacket is so durable. Mm-hmm. And what I do now is sell snowcats and work on snowcats for a living for Piston Bully and Peterson equipment. And I'm like, the best gear that I could wear is my ether jacket. Or I will say the temper jacket that's come out. I'm like, I want to get a temper jacket. That's another Black Friday buy. If you guys have a deal on that, I'm like,
which color?
I don't know. The tan one is really good looking. I was
thinking if you're going to do full high vis.
I don't know if I'll do full high vis, because I don't want to be that noticeable. Yeah. I'm here to talk about your snowcats, not your dumpsters. But I'm like, that black one though, with the reflective shoulders on it or arms on it, I'm like, that with my company logo embroidered on it.
It's a cool piece.
It is super cool.
I was kind of skeptical, but then when they started talking about the customer, Midwest, these guys are out working in -30. And they want to wear the same stuff that most of them are wearing their snowmobile jackets to the job site. Why not like double whammy it? You got something high vis, reflective, and you can go jump on your sled and still have the same quality.
Think of how tough sled gear has to be.
Yeah.
And then it's like, if I'm riding through the trees and I'm like stuck in a pine tree and I'm rubbing against the pine tree trying to pull skis or something like that, everyday life isn't comparable. Like, I would rip normal jackets in two, but my 509 stuff, it's like, no, I'm going to wear it here, and I'm going to have my normal everyday jacket, because I know it's not going to break down on me. It's exactly what I need.
Jeff Dennis up in Alaska, AK Sled Junkie.
Oh, yeah.
He gives us such a hard time because we use the term casual jacket. Like for say a Forge, for example. Actually, even my Stoke jacket, I'll be like, I have a clean one that's my casual around town. He's like, what do you mean your casual jacket? It's just not a term. I mean, they say snow machine also, right?
Yep.
And he's like, picks us up from the airport last March when we were up there, and he goes, hey guys, like my new casual jacket? And he's so proud. He's like, I've been telling all my friends about what casual jackets are. And it kind of felt like one of those scenarios where they just heard AC/DC last week for the first time, like that type of thing. Like so far north.
My forged jackets, I have 2 forged jackets, and I got to admit, I've never tested them on the sled. I've only ever worn them like
casual jackets.
In the church on Sunday when it's snowing out. Like that's when I wear my forged jacket.
Totally. I got to hit on something really quick there. That was super cool with Hoonigan, the race team there, all wearing the ether stuff. It's been an absolute honor, Butch, that like the Hoonigan side and Ken Block side have fulfilled obligations made prior to his passing. Like, it is so cool to see that the team is passionate about it, and they're like, hey, this was something that he was into that we want to follow through with. And when I saw you guys wearing those jackets and got them, I was like, I mean, it hit me. It was humbling because this has been a long-term goal for me outside of saying, oh my gosh, Ken Block has your jacket. It's more of like, I grew up watching him, listening to him, everything. I mean, I grew up buying DC shoes, watching snowboarding, skateboarding, everything, X Games, and it was like so awesome that didn't just come to a halt. You know,
just because things changed on January 2nd doesn't mean the team is not trying to get the best of the best.
Yeah.
So when 509 came into the rotation, it was like, they're still going to wear those jackets and those pants because they are what they need.
Yeah.
And they just fulfilled on that. But I definitely have to say Ken's wife, Lucy Block, she's the reason why things have continued the way it is for sure.
She's been incredible to deal with.
She's followed through on everything, and she works so hard, plus raises a family of 3 and has 4 dogs maybe. And it's like, I don't know how she's still continuing to do it for sure. So I give her all the credit in the world for the fact that things still look like they're going swimmingly.
Yeah. It just spoke volumes to me of how great of people the whole family is in the team. Like, that is so cool that they're willing to fulfill these things and carry on with the legacy. So
for sure.
Yeah. Just tons of good people. And you got all these incredible people in your corner.
Yeah. Yeah. Everyone for sure. And it escaped being a job real quick.
Yeah.
It became a family thing real fast. Like, they housed me
so
for
awesome.
years and years and years. They put me up and whatnot. And yeah, it's a family thing.
Yeah.
And sledding's a family thing.
That's how the pro team is. Like, it's weird even calling them the pro team. I mean, they are the best riders in the world, but I'm like, they're like my brothers.
For sure. Yeah. Everyone looks out for everyone.
Yeah.
When you get into a situation like that in anything in life, whether it's motorsports or in like a outdoor sport like sledding or hunting or something like that, hunting's the next one on my to-do list big time. Mm-hmm. When you find that group that treats you more like family than like, oh, this is the dude that I do the thing with on the weekends, it just changes the course of how everything is.
Yeah. It gets to a point where it's funny. We're like, hey guys, we got to do the whole business thing today. You know, we got to talk about a contract or something.
For sure.
I'm like, we figure this out, then we can go back to doing all that fun stuff and BSing. But, you know, every now and then we got to be serious. But it's cool that when it comes to, you know, the business side, it's like they know when to turn it on, when to turn it off, and they're just genuine humans, everybody in this industry.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, everyone around here is the type of person you're like, I'm going to stay in touch with that person.
Exactly.
Well past my departure from motorsports.
Exactly.
So sledding, I'll never depart from sledding, but it's like, I'm going to stay in touch with these people forever.
Yeah.
Carl and Shelly, all those guys, Tony, I'll know them for life at this point.
Totally. And with that, you and I are going to finally ride this winter. It's been a while.
Oh, it's been 3 or 4 years. To be fair, I haven't ridden a sled since January 2nd. But
that's fine. It's understandable. But you and I this winter, it's on.
Yeah, I'm holding you to that.
Okay, deal. Maybe BC.
Who says no to a BC trip?
Get Jay, get Blaine, get Carl, Tony. Like, I'm talking off the clock for me, like boys week.
Oh, leave the cameras at home?
I mean, maybe take a couple clicks for the memories, but
yeah, for sure. I'm totally in the ride. We'll escape Utah. Utah's great, but there's a lot of other really great stuff out there.
Mm-hmm. Well, but you got anything else on your list over there for me? I'm more than happy to keep on going, but
we've ticked past an hour.
I know.
But
this list is just like staring me down where I don't want to kind of jump in and go whatever way.
So much stuff in here, like Dan Adams' professionalism is on a level that Dan. But
if I call you, I need to make sure I have 45 minutes free because, man, you are one hell of a talker.
I want to get him and Carl in a room because Carl can talk for sure. But Dan's level of professionalism is at a level that most motorsports teams are trying to achieve.
Yeah.
Like riding in the backcountry with him, how organized he is and how the day goes and how safety is and everything
His
like that.
His crew is awesome.
Oh, it's
dialed.
wild. To be fair, CKMP is the same exact way.
Yeah.
But it's like when I rode with Dan up in Alpine, I was like, this dude is for sure got everything sorted out here.
I respect Dan more than almost all these guys. I shouldn't say that. That sounds bad. I respect Dan a lot as well as everybody else. But Dan, because he took me under his wing when I lived down there, my first year working for 519, I lived in McClure's basement. Yep. And Dan would let me just piggyback on his clinics when I had days off. Never asked for anything in return. Just kind of wanted to make sure I was learning correct avalanche safety, all these, just the fundamentals of the sport. And I probably shadowed 10 clinics of his. And I'm like, dude, I owe a lot of my riding advancement to him and just the kindness of his heart.
I'm waiting for the day that Dan announces he's with a different clothing supplier because I know he's with someone else right now. But someday he's going to leave them and he's going to end up with 509, and that'll be an exciting day.
I poke at him here and there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. We were talking about that Rimshaw thing earlier. Mm-hmm. My biggest mistake ever comes in a Rimshaw event, same event, within an hour of each other. So my Rimshaw sled, I would take the track off. I would go backcountry with. When I went to Jackson and raced Jackson for the first time, I entered Jackson. They bring your sleds in on a four-wheeler, whatever, a trailer. And then it's rule number 1, don't ride your sled without your helmet on. Don't care if you're going up the hill or you're just putting it in a trailer. Put your helmet on. And I was just super green, wet behind the ears, so excited. I'm at Jackson. There's the hill. I can't believe this. It's going to go down. And they unload my snowmobile from the four-wheeler trailer. And I ride into the pit area, no helmet. And some guy walks over to me and he's like, you want to go home right now? And I was like, no, I'm
heart drops
here to race. And he's like, where's your helmet? And I was like, oh, it's right. It's not on my head. And he was like, look, I know you're new. Put your helmet on. Let's not make this a mistake twice. I'll never make that mistake. And I wish I knew his name because I owe him so much, because I was like, he could have sent me home for my first time ever going up the hill at Jackson. I was so sketchy. But to be fair, I also, the first time I ever went up the hill in Jackson, forgot to take my scratchers off my sled. And I probably shouldn't admit that on an open forum. But again, I was rode backcountry trying to keep my sled cool. And then I go to Jackson and I have my scratchers still on. I forgot to take them off. It's I do motorsports for a living. And then I go to Jackson and I make that mistake. It's
just that pit in your stomach feeling.
I can't even believe I did that. That's all I do in life, is make sure that motorsports events go correctly. Then I have my own, and I make these 2 colossal mistakes. It blows my mind that I even made that mistake.
Never going to forget it, though.
No, I'm never going to make that mistake twice, that's for sure.
I used to race watercross in the Midwest.
You did?
Yeah.
How often do you sink a sled?
Oh, all the time. I was super good at it.
Super good at sinking sleds or racing watercross?
Sinking sleds and drying them out.
Because I've seen the video of Jay trying to race watercross before.
Yeah. I was similar to that. Every other time we'd sink.
You got to just keep it pinned.
Yeah, and there's a lot of strategy. But one time I went out for a heat race, came back in, and one of my teammates slapped me on the back, and he went, "Good race, you got lucky." What? And I realized when he slapped me on the back, I didn't have my life jacket on.
Is that not something they notice?
You can wear them under your jerseys or your jackets. And I always wore it under. And I just quickly threw we'd wear a Forge style jacket on the water.
Yeah.
And I quickly threw it on, rushed into the line, just adrenaline pumping. Didn't sink, came back. And it was his subtle, you got lucky. And he smacked my back hard. And I don't know. I just thought about myself being in the water, how lucky I got with full gear on, just weight of all of that.
How much of normal sled riding relates to watercross? Because, okay, I hate to admit it, I've gone across a pond or two, but it's this is my straight line, keep it pinned. I've never tried to turn. And I see the sleds, they're these goofy little short control arms and stuff like that.
So they run a really short lug track. Because once you think about it, it makes sense. You don't want a big lug because that just scoops more water and creates drag in the tunnel. Sure. And slows the sled down. You want to skim across the water. So you run a short lug. And then we turned right. So you'd run a 137 track in a 146 or 55 tunnel. And then you'd strap your snow flap strategically like a rudder almost. Your snow flap strap made the difference on everything. If it was strapped too tight, too loose, whatever, because you'd strap just one side really tight so that when the water came off the back, the flap kind of bent at like a 45 and dug that corner in as you were turning and worked as a rudder, deflecting the water out. And if you had a flat break and there was just free sailing back there, you'd go in the next corner and flat slide instantly. Like,
name a sport where they take the object of the sport and turn it into a completely, totally opposite, different form of sport more than watercross.
Yeah, it's bizarre. I mean, when you go look at a fully built, proper, like pro class watercross sled, it doesn't barely even recognize a snowmobile anymore.
Oh, for sure.
So many little tricks to get the things to work efficiently.
I mean, even normal car motorsports, cars are so removed from what they actually are when they leave the factory. It's pretty incredible. I mean, like hill climb sleds are pretty close to what they are in the backcountry for the most part. Race cars are pretty close. I guess, watercross sleds are just so much different when you actually get them to function completely doing something different.
Yeah, I don't even know how to explain it. I mean, it's similar if you just get out on an open lake, frozen lake with snow on it, and you can just hold your side hill perfectly, where you're locked in and you're not fighting the sled. Kind of doing that, but then you hit somebody's old track. It's like that the whole time.
Throws you for a loop.
Fighting it, and then all of a sudden you're locked in really well, and then you're fighting it, and you're locked in, and it's...
I used to, when I raced Rimshaw for whatever it was, year and a half, I used to think like, when I go up this hill, I'm going to try and like follow the other guy's lines. Maybe it'll help me get better at Rimshaw. No, it's not even close. Yeah. No, like being the sixth guy up one hill in the backcountry has no bearing as to what it's like after you followed 35 semi-pros up the same exact path.
And there's no snow left.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's no longer snowmobiling. It's rock crawling.
I'm kind of enjoying your list here. What else? I'm having fun with this.
Time that Ken rolled his UTV in Moab.
Filming?
Yeah, we were filming. We had permits to film. I can't even remember the name of the road. You like come into Moab, it's way up the hill on the right. It's this big cliff band. We were filming for Can-Am, and we're like on this corner with these film guys, and Stephen Clark was with us.
Oh, okay. I do know this a bit.
Yeah, Stephen was with us.
This destination thing all around Utah?
Yeah, exactly.
Zach also?
Yep. And Stephen came out, and I remember Ken went past us, and then he didn't come back in the same amount of time that he normally does. And we're like, where did Ken go? And I kind of like walk up the road around the corner a bit, and I look down literal cliff band, and this UTV's on its lid, on its roof, and Ken's just standing there, helmet off, and he just gives me this cheeky smile and a wave. And I was like,
oops.
Oh, the sled's on its roof, or the UTV's on its roof, guys. And we like all go run down there, put it back on his wheels, and off he goes. But I just remember thinking to myself, like, he just rolled it and he just climbed down, just waved, and
just another
put
day
it back on its wheels.
Just another day
just
in the
went
office.
for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got pretty good at rolling things over the years, cars constantly. Yeah. Actually, you got pretty good at getting away on the cars. There wasn't too many big rally incidents.
Oh man, LSPR 2013 lost the championship. Eight and a half rolls, whatever it was.
What the Kazi too? Did that roll?
Oh, directly before the fire, he rolled into the spot the car burned.
Yeah,
to the
that's
ground.
what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
For sure. Yeah, like gearbox jammed up on him, which we call transmissions gearbox in motorsports. Jammed up on him, wouldn't downshift, too much speed, tried to cut the speed by going into the ditch, but he caught a rock, it flipped him over, through the corner, landed in the bushes. And those weird YB Cosworth engines, what we believe, the fuel pressure regulator was right on the end of the fuel rail, which sits like 2 inches from the bottom of the hood. And when he rolls across the hood, he clips the fuel pressure regulator off, and it's just spraying fuel. Yeah. And that car is actually sitting in our shop here, like 12 and a half feet away from us through a wall. It still sits in like this old container that we have.
It reminds me every time I see it, something of like Indiana Jones, like Raiders of the Lost Ark in one of the big crates somewhere.
Yeah.
Just hiding away.
Hardly recognizable. It's pretty cool though. Aluminum burns or melts at such a low level. That car, when you look in at it, all the aluminum stuff is gone and anything that's not metal is gone. So you would think like, oh, you guys took the engine apart. No, we didn't.
It's gone.
It melted, like the parts melted off of it. We're left with like the steel block or something like that. All the rest of the stuff's just disintegrated. But passed a snowmobile in the mountains like 2 years ago. Super random in the Wasatch, not even the Uintas, in the Wasatch. It was burnt flat to the ground at the bottom of a hill.
Yeah.
And I've never heard whose it was, why it was there, anything like that. But I couldn't even recognize, honestly, what kind it was. It was just burnt flat into like a hole in the snow.
Yeah, I can't believe when sleds go up, like sometimes even the like spindles are gone.
Yeah, totally.
A-arms, everything. And it's protruded out quite a ways from where the fuel source is.
Yeah.
Those things must just get ripping.
Yeah, you just, at that point, you just let it burn.
Oh, yeah, you have no
Especially
other
a fuel fire.
Yeah.
You can't put snow on that. You're not going to find dirt to put on it.
No.
You just got to let it burn flat
Step
to the ground.
away and weep in your sorrows.
Yeah, exactly. Awful. And I know that happens to the UTV guys all the time.
Yeah.
At like where you're going tomorrow, I think Sand Hollow. They burn UTVs down to the ground there all the time.
I believe it. The UTV world's a whole nother animal.
I was there when Ken taught Brandon the jump. You can ask Brandon about this because I remember Ken had such an eye for different things, kickers and whatnot. And I remember in Sand Hollow, there was this little jump and it was like a little kicker down a really long decline and you could hit it nearly flat out, but you modulate the throttle to keep the nose up or down and Ken would land perfectly every time. And I remember Brandon standing there like, I have the same UTV, both wearing 509 helmets. I have everything that he has. Why can I not hit that jump as well? And I remember Ken explaining to him how to, throttle into the jump, how to take off,
preload it.
Don't land on the throttle or like full throttle. You'll snap the axles out of the thing. And it definitely was like, I can remember watching Brandon's eyes like it clicked. And then I have video on my phone. I'll send to you or whatever. They were hitting it like a dozen times in a row, just sending it downhill. Yeah. I don't know if it's that easy to teach a sled guy how to jump, but UTV stuff, it was like at that point, everyone was standing around like, oh man, I have a, Can-Am Defender. Can I jump that? It looks so smooth, just sailing down this hill and landing.
I think I know exactly which one you're talking about because I think Brandon's posted like a GoPro photo from like right under it, hitting that or something.
Yeah, and then they were like tandem behind each other going off of that. It was super good. When Brandon first started the jump, I remember he broke a bunch of axles in the back and we were like super bummed out for him. And then Ken taught him how to jump and taught us how to do everything. So now the world was right. We know what we're doing thanks to Ken.
And he's not changing axles all the time.
No, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you want to keep going, but here's my kind of ultimatum for you. If we don't, that means you got to come back on.
I'll come back on. Man, I got some stories.
I know. See, that's what I like here. So far, everybody's hooked. They're like, sweet, we talked about sledding. And I know you got a million other stories, so we could maybe follow up with a Strictly Story podcast.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll give you one story that I love before we go.
I would love this.
First time we went to Canada, we rode with Carl, and we were in some zone somewhere, and Carl's going up this hill. And I'm like, Carl's here. Carl's going to teach me everything. He's, close to the goat of snowmobiling.
Father Carl is here.
Yeah. So I was like, Carl, can I jump this down? Carl was like, yeah, man, absolutely. You can totally do that. And so if you look up like, I want to say it was like 2014 snowmobile fails, like the compilation ends up on YouTube. I'm like the third video somehow.
Oh, you made it in there.
I made it in there.
Fail Army?
Fail Army. No, not Fail Army. It was a snowmobile specific one. But Carl's like, yeah, you could do that. Just hit it at this speed, blah, 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 and you'll land down here. And I remember I come off that lip, sky it out, land, and it's like rock solid.
Oh, no.
So hard. And like, all 6'2" of me just conforms over the sled, and I just like go rolling off the side. You could like hear the air come out of my body when I hit the ground, and I could just remember getting up. Carl rides over. Carl's like, it's a little harder on the landing than I thought it was going to be. I was like, yeah, no kidding, dude. I still trust the guy with anything, but that was a point where I was like, oh man, that was such a
wind
mistake.
Blown or something under the landing?
Yeah, it was like 6 inches of soft, and we thought it was harder on the landing. And I was like, but yeah, that YouTube compilation came out, and I was like, third video hit, and I was like, that was me. That was me in Sicamous, British Columbia, going to flat and just completely yard sailing.
There's nothing worse than when your body is expecting a nice soft landing too. So you're fully relaxed, and then you buckle.
Worst part about it, I got up, my strap was down around my neck, and my visor came down, and I was just a complete train wreck. Thankfully, I think Ken was like, hey, fix yourself before I see like anyone sees us together.
You look ridiculous. Yeah. Well, Butch, thank you. 2-3 years of talking about, hey, we're going to come out of a podcast. Hey, we came out of a podcast. Hey, you want to be on the podcast? And we finally made it happen.
There's something else that's in the same time frame. We'll let that go for the future, but I'm excited for a lot of things that come in the future.
Likewise. I cannot thank you enough. You've become an incredible friend. Got to experience some incredible things, meet some great people. In return, you've got to experience some of our pro team and meet a bunch of incredible people as well. It's just been an awesome relationship. I can't thank you enough, dude, for the time and doing this.
Yeah. Appreciate you having me on.
Also, the listeners, if you guys are going, what's wrong with McKinney? I am like running on 4 hours of sleep, 11 hours of driving, was at an event yesterday. So I've actually really been thinking about the words that are coming out of my mouth because some of them are a little slow and struggling right now.
You're in the house of Ken Block, so you need a monster.
I know. So, and I feel like Butch has been watching me slightly decline, but we made it through, and we are definitely going to bring you back on and dive into another hour and a half.
Maybe after we ride together, we'll go do it.
All right. That sounds like a plan. Cool. Well, Butch, thanks again. Thank you, everybody, for listening. If you're on YouTube, we appreciate every comment. We read them all, reply to them, give us ideas who you want to see on next. Spotify and Apple, all the 5-star reviews do not go without being noticed. They push this in the algorithm and get more of you listening to this and hopefully interested in the sport. So we'll be back. I'm on the bubble here of going weekly, hopefully, as we stack some more up. For sure, bi-weekly, and going to carry through the whole season. So I think at the time this drops, next place we'll see you guys is Heydays. I could be wrong. If I already went to Heydays, sorry. If not, we'll see you in 2 weeks.